Welcome to Conspiracy Q. It's the top-secret investigation that dares to uncover all those hidden truths behind history's most shocking events. You know, forget what you think you know.
Yeah.
Today we're diving deep into some recently uncovered or classified sources. They challenge the official narrative, the attack on Pearl Harbor. You've heard this story before, right? A devastating surprise attack, the one that plunged America right into World War II. But what if? What if that surprise wasn't so surprising after all? What if the highest levels of the U.S. government not only knew an attack was coming, but according to these sources, deliberately allowed it to happen. Pretty wild, right? We have before us a whole compilation of top-secret intelligence and declassified memos and forgotten testimonies. It paints kind of a disturbing picture. So our mission today is to sift through this information, lay bare the potential smoking guns. That suggests the Pearl Harbor attack was a calculated move. Get ready, because this top-secret investigation is about to take you down a rabbit hole you won't soon forget, I'm telling you. Our recently uncovered or classified sources, they immediately point to a central question. Why? Why would anyone in power allow such a horrific attack to occur on American soil, an attack that resulted in the deaths of over 2,400 people?
Well, the sources you've provided, they highlight a confluence of different factors, primarily focusing on President Roosevelt's political challenges at the time. The overwhelming sentiment in America back then was isolationist. The documents actually state that polls in 1940 indicated that a staggering 83% of Americans opposed entering the escalating war in Europe.
According to these sources, Roosevelt's in a bind, like a Churchill pleading for American intervention. But the public and congressional will just as firmly against it. So the theory here is that Roosevelt believed that only a direct act of aggression against the U.S. could galvanize the nation into war.
Exactly. And the sources suggest an even more pragmatic but cynical motive, economic recovery. I mean, the Great Depression was still lingering, and war production was seen as a potential engine for jobs. And an economic revival, not to mention entering the war, could have positioned the U.S. to potentially reshape that post-war global order, maybe at the expense of some existing colonial powers, to America's strategic advantage in both the Pacific and Europe.
Okay, so we're talking about political necessity and potential long-term gains here. Let's dive into the intelligence failures now. Or were they failures?
Our sources
Detail the existence of magic intercepts. Can you explain that?
Magic. It referred to the U.S. breaking Japan's top diplomatic code, supposedly months before the attack. These intercepts, they revealed Japan's intentions, including severing diplomatic ties and, crucially, expressing specific interest in the exact locations of U.S. naval vessels stationed in Pearl Harbor. The sources explicitly ask, why would Japan care about exact ship locations unless they were planning an attack?
Yeah, that is chilling. And then there's the winds execute message.
Right. So the sources mention this coded phrase, east wind, rain, purported to signal imminent war with the United States. The account includes claims from sources like Navy Intelligence Officer Commander Lawrence Safford, who allegedly confirmed the message's interception. However, this crucial piece of intelligence, it mysteriously vanished, official records claiming it was never received.
It's like a key piece of the puzzle just went missing. Our sources also bring up the McCollum Memo. What's the significance of that?
Well, the declassified McCollum Memo. From October 1940, it's particularly damning in the context of this theory, this memo. Written by Navy LT Commander Arthur McCollum, it reportedly outlined an 8-point plan designed to provoke Japan into initiating an attack. I mean, the actions described in the memo, like embargoing oil, moving the Pacific Fleet to Hawaii, supporting Chinese resistance against Japan, they eerily mirror the actual policies implemented by the Roosevelt administration leading up to Pearl Harbor. And the memo concludes with this chilling statement. If by these means Japan could be led to commit an overt act of war, so much the better.
Wow. So we've got a potential motive and potential foreknowledge. But the sources go further. They detail strange orders issued before the attack, not just about intelligence, but the positioning of forces too.
Right. The sources highlight Admiral Richardson's protests against President Roosevelt's order to keep the Pacific Fleet stationed in Pearl Harbor, citing its vulnerability. And Richardson was subsequently replaced. Twice, according to the information. Despite apparent military concerns, FDR's advisors insisted on maintaining the fleet's exposed position.
And the aircraft carriers. That detail always seems so strange to me.
Yeah, the fact that all 3 U.S. aircraft carriers were out of port on December 7th, it's presented as another suspicious coincidence. The battleships, they were older, arguably less critical assets. They remained in Pearl Harbor and bore the brunt of the attack. But the carriers, vital for projecting power in the Pacific, they were conspicuously absent, mere chance, or a deliberate repositioning of key assets.
Interesting. And then, even on the morning of the attack itself, there were missed warnings.
Yeah. The sources detail a radar sighting of a large formation of incoming aircraft, detected by a U.S. radar station on Oahu, but that report. It was dismissed as a flight of B-17s arriving from California, so no further action was taken. No alert sounded.
It's a cascade of potential failures. Or, as these sources suggest, deliberate oversights. And what happened to those? Those who may have known too much?
Well, the sources named several individuals who allegedly faced repercussions after the attack. You had LT Commander Joseph Rochefort, head of the Navy's cryptology unit in Hawaii, who made significant progress in deciphering Japanese communications. He was reportedly discredited and reassigned. And Australian intelligence captain Eric Nave, he claimed that Japanese attack codes were deciphered before December 7th, and guess what? He was subsequently removed from intelligence work.
So they were silenced? What about the official investigations? Were they thorough?
The information suggests otherwise. Congressional investigations. They saw critical testimonies redacted or buried. Witnesses described information going missing or being deliberately intercepted. The source material even points to General Marshall's alleged inability to recall his whereabouts during the attack. Convenient amnesia.
Wow. And the aftermath. Our sources highlight who benefited most from the attack.
Right. The most immediate consequence was the end of American isolationism. Public opinion shifted dramatically. Congress overwhelmingly declared war on Japan. Roosevelt's approval rating soared. And the war economy. It effectively ended the Great Depression, propelling the U.S. to superpower status, with a global military presence. And a permanent wartime footing.
So, in a way, Pearl Harbor was the catalyst for a whole new world order.
You could say it.
Our sources leave us with some unanswered questions, some really big ones.
Yeah. Crucial points remain unexplained. Like, how could the entire Japanese attack force travel over 3,000 miles undetected? Despite U.S. listening posts across the Pacific, why were codebreakers seemingly able to warn of attacks elsewhere, but not at Pearl Harbor? Why were warnings from allied nations ignored or suppressed? And maybe most importantly, why were the aircraft carriers spared, while Pearl Harbor remained seemingly unprepared, despite numerous warning signs?
So, what do you make of all of this? Do these sources point to a catastrophic failure of intelligence or something far more sinister? The information presented here, it certainly gives us pause. It demands a reevaluation of the events surrounding December 7th, 1941. This top-secret investigation into Pearl Harbor reveals a disturbing narrative that challenges the long-accepted version of events. It forces us to consider uncomfortable possibilities about the nature of power and the justifications for war. We encourage you to delve deeper into these questions. Research the declassified documents, examine the testimonies, and draw your own conclusions. Was Pearl Harbor truly a surprise attack, or was it, as our sources suggest, a sacrifice made for a larger, hidden agenda? Thank you for joining us on this week's Top Secret Investigation with the Conspiracy Q podcast. Rate and follow Conspiracy Q to share the truth and stay informed as we continue to uncover the worst conspiracies in history. We'll see you next time.